Hello everybody, and welcome to a brand new Let's Learn Guitar series. Today we make our return to the band Metallica, and in the spirit of my OCD, we continue chronologically through all of their albums. Today we will begin our trek through one of, if not the most important metal album of all time, Master of Puppets. Metallica's 1986 album, which also happens to be the final album to include bassist Cliff Burton. Rest in peace. To kick off this series, we are going to be covering every single note, every single time change, every single chord progression, and a full, detailed musical analysis of Metallica's Battery. So let's get it on. I'm gonna Burtonize you. So to start off our trek through one of the greatest metal albums of all time, we're gonna have our electric guitar in hand, correct? Wrong, you big dummy. We gotta start off on an acoustic guitar because that makes the most sense of starting off one of the greatest metal albums of all time. And if you think otherwise, you're just a big doofus and get out of my face. The intro to Battery begins with a very short 4-chord progression that repeats over and over and over again. And it goes like this. Very simplistic and straightforward, but it does have some fancy elements that I want to go over right now. We start off on an E power chord, but instead of just having the power chord itself with the O2-2, we actually have an O2-3. So we're including an F on the top of an E chord, which creates a flatted ninth or a flatted second scale degree. So we're in Phrygian right out of the gate. And it immediately resolves into the E as soon as we get up there. Then we go right into an F chord with the notes F, A, and E. So that's an F major 7, the F sharp, A, and E, which makes an F sharp minor 7, which I'm going to say is actually more of a function of a D chord. So a major 4 chord on top of an F sharp. So first inversion. And then into a G5, but a double G5, because we have G, D, D unison to get a little bit of extra girth on that D. And then we go up to G. Boom. So just strum that chord the first time. The second time around we just do this. Now listen to the last chord. Last time around here. Ready? We don't play the G string on that one. We just play the double D on the bottom with that girth. So out of the gate, it appears as if we are in the key of E minor. Wrong, we are not in the key of E minor. We're actually in the key of A minor. We just never hit the A minor chord at all. Actually, we do kind of in the top part, but in this bottom rhythm, there is no indication of an A whatsoever. The only thing that tells us we are in A minor is the chord progression, right? With that E Phrygian, the F natural is in the key of A minor. When we move it up chromatically to the F, it becomes the flat 6 chord, alright? And that's a very common chord in the key of A minor. This F sharp is a first inversion D chord, so that's the 4 chord, and then the flat 7 chord G, which goes right up to A if we decided to hit it, but we don't. The first 3 chords of this introduction have an E on top, on the D string right there, and as we move through, that E stays consistent, which keeps continuity between the chord progression. Now these chords would ordinarily sound very different from one another if you were to just play them normally, but because of these voicings it connects them and glues them together perfectly. To make it even more continuous, we have an A and an E on top of the second and third chords, so the F and the F sharp, which keeps it nice and continuous there as well. It's beautiful. F to F, you don't even realize the difference, do you? Now there's no doubt that this introduction was inspired by Spanish-style guitar, and it's either played on a nylon string with slightly bright strings or a steel string with duller strings. I'm not exactly sure which one, but that's my hypothesis. After we move through that sequence one time, that continues to play, and then we hit our first little lead bit of the song. So check this out. Now this to me sounds very romantic. It sounds like you're about to take your girl out on a nice gondola ride out on the river, if you know what I'm saying. But in all seriousness, it's a very simple line, and I think that's why it's so effective. We're just going up to the notes B, C, A, which is 2 flat 3 and 1 in the key of A minor, and then at the end of it, we hit the flat 7, and then resolve it to the B. I must of course mention the little hammer-on and pull-off that happens the second time around. Oh yeah. And of course, let's not forget, you have to rake up the strings before you play a single note on this. Just like this. See that? Even slower. Oh yeah, it's beautiful. We continue that progression with another acoustic guitar laying on top of the first one, playing that little lead line. Now this time, instead of starting on a B, we're going up a third to start on a D. Alright, so we're harmonizing in thirds, just like this. Sounds pretty cool, but it doesn't sound cool enough yet. I think Cliff Burton would be disappointed if we left it at only 2 parts. We need to add a third part onto this monstrosity. So check this out. We're going to rake up to a G now. Alright, so we're creating a first inversion G major triad between the 3 guitars. Alright, so check this out. Here's the part. Second time around, with a little hammer pull. The exact same articulation as the other 2, just different notes. So now we're actually going up a perfect fourth from the last harmony to create a full G chord in first inversion. And it'll sound like this as a whole. Check it out. Now another thing that's interesting about this lead is it's the only thing that ever goes to an A minor chord. That's right, we're playing single notes, but we're playing a chord? What? That doesn't make any sense. Of course it makes sense. Listen to me. We're going like this. All 3 of those notes create a triad. The first one creates a G major going to an A minor. That's the only time we hear it. And it actually comes down to an A minor as well. Check it out. A minor. So you see how that works? We basically just changed the underlying bass notes on top of an A minor chord that's there. So that's kind of sneaky. It's crafty. It's shifty. I don't trust these guys. Let's move on to the next part. So let's just talk about the voicings a little bit. Instead of using 3 strings like we did on the acoustic, oh so complicated 3 strings, we're only using 2. So this is some simplistic stuff right here. Just a regular old E5 power chord, O and 2, with a nice accent on that right there. Going up to 1st fret and the open A string, that creates an F major 3rd, okay, so representing the flat 6 chord. Then we have an F sharp and an A played at the same time. That's a minor 3rd, okay? And remember, that's actually a part of a D chord function. The 4th chord in first inversion. Right into a regular old G power chord. It's so nice to play a power chord for once, isn't it? Jeez, James Hetfield, I love you. The lead guitars don't really change in anything other than the articulation, the way that it's played with the right hand. Now if you notice in the first part we had some rakes, some nice vibrato going, a little hammer-on pull-off action, almost like a trill, to give us that Spanish type of vibe. With the heavy section, we actually start off with 2 palm mutes, and then we go into the free notes. Check it out. See that? Mute, mute. Mute, mute. Nice vibrato. Mute, mute. And that's the whole change. You don't really have to worry about anything else except for that. Same thing goes with the middle one. I'll play it for you just for the sake of this exercise. Mute, mute. Don't mute. Mute, mute. Oh yeah. Mute, mute. Don't mute. Don't you dare mute that. Mute, mute. Good job. Let's do the top one. Mute, mute. Oh wow. Nice. Mute, mute. Nice vibrato. Don't mute this. Now mute. Mute, mute. Mute, mute. After coming out of there, we hit our first transition riff, which then goes into the main part that everybody loves. And here are the chords. They go E, B, G, huh? Let's check out that last chord. Those first three are pretty self-explanatory, right? Just an E power chord, a B power chord, a G power chord. So 1, 5, flat 3. But this one right here is going to take a little bit of decoding, okay? Based on what the guitar and the bass are playing together, this is a minor third over here, a D sharp and an F sharp, which is usually indicative of a major 5 chord. Alright, so a big 5. And I will say that that's probably what's happening here. It's a B major chord, but in first inversion for the guitar. But because Cliff Burton is playing an F sharp in the bass, I'm going to say a major 5 chord in second inversion. That's right, we're barely even a minute into this song, and already we have something very complex in the harmonic structure. Now, after that juggernaut of an intro, we finally get into the main riff of the song. The riff by which everything hinges upon. Let's check it out. The main riff of Battery is focused around a Gallop riff, similar to an Iron Maiden style, but this version really takes it off the rails. Imagine an iron horse with an engine dead set on obliterating everything in its path, especially the redneck looking guy trying to stick quarters in its ass to take a ride. Now those gallops are represented by a 1 and a 2 and a 3. That kind of rhythm. That's a 16th note rhythm. 1 and a 2 and a 3. Ba ba 1 and a 2 and 3. Ba da da 1 and a 2 and a 3. Da 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 da. Now I'll say it time and time again. Rhythm is the name of the game here. You need to understand this rhythm just as well as James Hetfield understands this rhythm. His right hand moves in a very precise machine gun-like manner with those gallops. 1 and a 2 and a 3 and a 1 and a 2 and a 3 and a 1 and a 2 and a 3 da da da. So all those downstrokes have to be right in the pocket, whether it's on an upbeat or a downbeat. The whole thing is up to you. Now note-wise, we're starting off with a B flat going to an A. That is the flatted 5th going into the perfect 4th interval. So it sounds like this. It's very bluesy sounding. The second half starts with a minor 3rd dipping in and out of a neighboring tone. So we're going like this. And right on the downbeat, you have to hit that extra one. That goes between an E minor, minor 3rd, going into that first inversion B chord. But once again, because Cliff Burton is playing an F sharp in the bass, it's actually a second inversion, so pretty tricky. The second half comes in like this. F sharp to G, G to G sharp. Now, this sounds more like out of the Bo Diddley playbook or a Thelonious Monk tune than anything else. This is jazz and blues right here. Listen to it in context of just an E. That's almost like 1930s blues right there. That's pretty insane. Now at the very end we hit the B flat to A, but in a syncopated manner. Okay? It's not changing the time signature, actually still in 4/4, but we have to start it on the downbeat, and then everything else happens on the upbeat, like this. And then right back into the riff, so up, 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 down. With one guitar playing that Gallop part by itself, we have another guitar that comes in to outline the accents, so when the drums kick in, right? Now once the drums come in, we're in complete, utter thrash mode, and we play the riff the exact same way, just over a thrash beat. Would you look at that? Lars is pretty good at this whole thing, isn't he? After that syncopated part, for the second time, we go right into a chord progression like this. Now, there's nothing really to say about that. You're just going from E, which is the 1, G, the flat 3rd, A to 4, and then 2 E's to that little inverted B chord. That riff can be seen as a premonition to the chorus section, which we will be going over later. The verse riff is the same exact horse gallop riff from Hell, but we don't play the syncopation on the outro. One more time. Now what makes this crazy is that James Hetfield thought it would be a good idea to sing on top of this as he's playing it. What makes this incredibly difficult to do is that the vocal comes in prematurely to when you start hitting the accented power chords. See how it comes in prematurely before those accents hit on the right hand? Very tricky stuff, and it's incredible that James Hetfield was able to pull this off, especially in 1986. After we play that verse riff 2 times, we head into the chorus section. Now the chorus just fuses together that same riff that we were playing, but it also adds in the other, more free chord riff like this. Right? Now that part is a little bit easier to sing over, so it gives Hetfield a little bit of relief before he has to go back to another one of those verses. Now after you play through those free chords 1 time, we have to play through the riff 1 full time. But instrumentally, we come back here again with these chords. That time though, we play it half a time. Okay, so we're halving the amount of time for that riff, which is really awesome. It's a great compositional tool that Metallica actually uses pretty often in their music. We come in with more chords, but this time half notes, so once again we're halving the amount of time we spend on it. And we end with those quarter notes at the very end. All the same stuff, reminiscent of that intro transition out of the, well, the introduction section. So, E, B, G, E, B, E. Right back into the riff again. But this time it's a permutated version. This version of the riff plays about 70% of it before it changes it at the very end. Like this. See that? I'm gonna finish. So let's check out that first variation. We actually turn that into a measure of 5, which adds the extra batterie into it, right? So we're going like this. 1 and a 2 and a 3 and 4 and 5 and 1. So we have to actually make our way from the 6th fret of the E string with the double B flat to a palm muted open A, which gives us just enough time to hop down to the 1st fret of the A and the E string to go back into the open E for beat 1. The end of that 5-4 measure also outlines the flat 5th, the flat 2nd, and the open, maybe a Locrian candidate. Then the next time we return to 4-4, 1 and a 2 and a 3 and 4 and 1, 2, 3, 4. After that hard stop of 2 beats, we hit into the first guitar solo of the song. Now the rhythm is just the same 3 chords that we're familiar with. 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2. Right back into the main riff. Now this solo is only 12 beats long. That's incredibly short for a guitar solo, but it's very effective and very memorable. Here's what Kirk is playing on the top. We roll in with a solo that's in the key of E minor, okay? Now we're playing sort of pentatonic-ish runs and sort of bluesy stuff, but we're mixing it up a little bit here. Check this out. So we start off by going like this, bend at the 15th, full bend into the unison note on the 12th. So, and then we do this, pull off from the 17 to 12, 15 to 12, 14 to 12, right next to each other. And then you come back to the 15th again, with a little bit of a bend that time. You might not be able to get the full bend out that easily, but a little bend will suffice. And you do that again. Now check out the change. Just another pentatonic-like pattern, but instead of starting on the 15th fret, we're going on the 14th fret. 14, 12, down to the B string, 14, 12 double, 14, 12, and then that little ending with the that little 14th fret double stop with the bend that sounds almost like a train going off, and then the 12th fret with the same sort of deal. And here it is full speed with both parts playing together. Let's also note that that guitar solo is the product of Cliff Burton putting a cattle prod up Kirk Hammett's hoo-ha. That's how he got those fast notes out. Electrified mother... Now the second verse and chorus are played exactly the same as they were the first time, but I'm going to give you a run-through, sort of in slow motion, and I'm going to point out where the chorus halves, where we cut it in half, just like I was saying before, and then where we extend it. Alright, so check this out. See his family, can't kill the battery. Full time, okay? Think of that as one. Half. Half, half, half. Boom, boom, boom. Extended. 5. Cool. There we stop for another 2 beats with total silence, and then we just hit a nice big E power chord, 1, 2, 3, 4, to go into the bridge part. The bridge part starts with 2 guitars playing a unison riff, and then it splits off into 2 unique parts, which we'll go over separately. Here's the first riff. All we're doing is playing with the E power chord, the 1, the G, the flat 3rd, and the B, the 5th. But we're playing a very specific rhythm. We're holding out the E chord, and once we hit the G, we go like this. Basically, we're playing around with the 4th beat of each measure. Alright, so we're starting off like this, with this rhythm. 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, a 4 and 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. Now this section could be a little bit tricky for a rhythm player because it's not entirely clear what you're supposed to be playing. It almost sounds like you should be playing the same riff again, but you don't. You play something entirely different. So let me go over the Hetfield rhythm part right here. Ready? So we're playing around with certain chords within the E minor scale, okay? We're starting off with an E and a 3, slide into the C and then come down to G, 2 palm mutes in between, G, A, B. Alright, so we're going flat 3rd, 4th, and 5th on those chords. Come again, flat 6, 5, flat 3rd, and then the second time we got to do this. A little fancy rhythm there. We're bringing the Gallop back for a little bit. All down picks except for that and a 2 and a button, right? So check it out. That's down, then up, down instead of down. You know what I'm saying? And you got to keep going down for the rest of them. We come back. That's the same as the first time. Then this. Easy enough, we're just going to the E, G, which is the relative major, flat 3rd, up to C, which is the flat 6 of E minor, or the 4 chord of the G, so very consonant. And then we don't hit the guitar solo yet, we still have to learn the lead part, which goes like this. That first part repeats 3 times, and we're basically pedaling on an E down at the bottom. We're going like this. Pedaling on E. Messing around with different notes of the E minor scale. See that? We repeat it 3 times. It's basically the same thing in a completely different context, so it kind of slips by the radar here. Very sneaky. 2, 3, 1, 3, 1, 7, 1, 2, 3, 1, 3, 1, 2, 3, 4. And we end with a little bit of tension on that perfect 4th scale degree on the very top of it. The last part, we slide from an E down to a B, up to a B, to a D. Now that harmonically lines up with the chords that are being played underneath, the first being an E, the second being a G. When you put a B on top of that, it becomes the major 3rd, so that's a G major. And then when we go B up the octave, we're hitting a C chord. That creates a C major 7, which is a beautiful chord, but very odd that this is here. It's a very jazzy sounding chord. Check it out. That's pretty damn cool. And then once you hit the D, we're back on the G chord again. So here it is, single guitar. Pretty cool sound. Chord is held out and Lars plays this drum fill. We do this real fast, and then we're into the guitar solo. Now here's the rhythm guitar that's being played. So we have this rhythm, 1 and a 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and a 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4, and that's all it is. And it sounds a lot harder to understand when it's playing because everything is so chaotic. And it's basically just playing a permutated version of the original riff, but we're playing E, B, B flat, A. So we're going root, 5th, flat 5, 4th. So we go through those chords 4 times. And then we do it another 2 times. And then on the last time that it would be on the ending there, we go to 3, 2, 1, which is G, F sharp, F. Which that's just a big walk down into dissonant oblivion. The last time around we got to play it like this. All in 4/4. The trick is to make sure you remember that rhythm. 1 and a 2 and a 3 and 4 and 1 and then the whole thing starts over again. And I must reiterate, that right hand rhythm is super important. You're only going down up on the 16th notes, but when you're playing 8th notes, all downstrokes, okay? And make sure you're getting that articulation correct as well. We're not palm muting every single note, we're palm muting all the way up to the B. And then the B flat and the A roam free. Same thing happens with that G when we come down as well. The G is muted, the F sharp and F roam free. I wonder if that's supposed to mean something deeper. I don't think so. Let's move on. The rhythm of the solo then moves into a section reminiscent to the chorus part. E, 2, 3, 4, G, 2, 3, 4, A, 2, 3, 4, F sharp. It's elongated this time. And A, 2, 3, 4. And that allows the guitar solo to play its final licks at the end. A very, very, very cool rhythm part. Now, James Hetfield has a tendency, especially on these early songs, to play a completely different set of riffs and rhythms, or changing them completely for the solo section only. So that's kind of cool. We're keeping very consistent with his prior compositional moves. Good job, James Hetfield. Now we finally get into the guitar solo. I'm sure everybody's been waiting for this one. It's one of my favorites from Kirk Hammett, and it sounds like this. So in order to tackle this solo properly, we have to go through each section nice and slow. So we start off with a 14th fret double stop on the G and the B string, creating an A and a C sharp. That's like a Dorian over the E minor, and it sounds like this. Sounds like a train barreling through the station with no intention of picking you up or dropping you off. We come right into this lick like this, 14th fret on the G and 12th fret on the G. And then into the 14th on the D. Back up, we hit into this series of bends and pull-offs at the 14th fret of the G, 12 and 15 respectively on the B, like this. And you want to do that 5 times. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And it's very important that you count it that way, because if you don't recognize these blips, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, you're going to get lost on top of that chaotic riff that is running below you, okay? And that bend always signals the end of that whole entire phrase, so you got to make sure you're in the right spot. Speaking of bends, we continue up with this 17th fret whole step bend. And then we bend it all the way up and then release it downward. Come down to the 12th fret, hammer into the 15th like this. We're almost doing the same exact thing we did on the B and the G with the 14th fret like this, but we're going like this. And we're only playing it once, just to come back to this. But this time we're going to play that 6 times. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, boom! Back into another bend. And that once again ends that chaotic section underneath. Now let's just play that slow real quick. You want to make sure you treasure those bends for as long as possible because those are the only breaks that you're getting through this whole thing. The next part goes like this. Here's full speed. So we're basically just doing a series of pull-offs, double finger pull-offs as well. Start with your ring finger, add the pointer, 4, 2, and then pull off from 4 to 2 to open. We're doing a mi, re, do, or a figaro, 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 but we're going even faster than we humanly can, okay? Imagine somebody singing Figaro in that speed. You wouldn't be able to do it. Try it again. It doesn't work. See, you gotta stop doing that. Then you gotta do them 2 measures, and then the next 2 measures you're ascending all the way up that chromatic scale, keeping the open G on the bottom. So this is all just chromaticism. Don't worry about the theory involved. The only thing you have to worry about is you're starting here at the 5th fret and just gradually ascend and end at the 14th fret right up top. Here's that whole thing slow. And you want to try and approximate it as closely as you can to that rhythm. It's not going to come out that way. You're probably never going to be able to play that the same way twice. But guess what? You have a wah pedal so you can cover up any mistakes that you're making. The next part goes like this. And that lick starts like this. Now that starts up at the 12th fret, coming up to the 15th, down to the 14th, 12, hammer on pull off, 15th down at the bottom, then 12, 14. That's once again in the Dorian mode using both the 2nd scale degree or the 9th and the major 6th. That's the Dorian. Immediately following that, we take down this scale and we palm mute all the notes going down the bottom. Just like that, all the way down an E minor blues scale starting on this note. We then come back up that same exact scale like this. That's a purely pentatonic riff right there. Let me play that whole thing slowly for you so you can see the picking a little bit better. All downstrokes. And we also get a little bit of a break on that 14th fret. Then we come into another section which is a little more melodic. We're playing over that chord progression that we saw earlier. So we're actually going up a B minor pentatonic, which creates some pretty excellent flavors on the top like this. So that's a B minor 7 on top of an E. Okay, now this is very interesting because with the B minor 7 we get a 5th, a flatted 7th, and a 9th on top of the E. B, D, F sharp. Very colorful. Coming out of that fancy arpeggio, we hit into more scale notes that are reminiscent of E minor, actually. So check this out. Until we hit the 6th fret down here. That's actually a Dorian mode, so we're playing an E Dorian. Starting up at the top again. 4, flat 3rd, 2, 1, flat 7, major 6, flat 7th, bend up to the root, major 6, 5th, and then that little motion there. Now here's the tricky part. We hit a G sharp on the next part. So we're actually resolving into an E major at that point, which is pretty insane right there. We're mode mixing pretty considerably. We're up at the top with E minor, because we have the minor 3rd up top, but then once we hit the bottom, we're hitting a major on the bottom. So we could actually see this as a sharp 9 or an E7 sharp 9, which is known as the Jimi Hendrix chord, and that has both notes up top. You got the flat third here, and you got the major third down at the bottom. Then we come in with the same arpeggio idea as the B minor, but we play it in E minor this time. So we're at the 14th fret, 12th, 12th, and 15th. Once again. And then a stereotypical blues lick, you're bending and releasing. So you're pre-bending, releasing, coming down to 12, and then 14, 12, and then this. So that's a nice big bend on that minor third, which is the 15th fret, going up to the perfect 5th, which is the 17th fret, and then a nice little hammer on and pull off to bring us back to E. And then this crazy cacophony. Did you get that? Let me play that slow for you. That sounds really stupid when you play it slow and without a wah pedal as well, so it's doubly stupid. We're starting off on the 12th fret of the B string, going to the 13th fret like this. And then 15th on the E to the 14th. So we're hitting 4 very tense notes, very dramatic notes. We're starting with the perfect 5th on the E, the flatted 6th, so very dramatic and tense, the minor 3rd, and the 2nd, or the 9th. So, and you want to make sure you're tremolo picking through the whole thing. We just move that same shape down, 10th fret, 12th, 14, 12. And that's A, B, F sharp, E, or 4, 5, 9, 1. And then the last few notes is just a hammer on and pull off section going like this: 12, 14, 11, 12, and 12 and 12 on the A and the D, like this. And that's just a spastic way to get us through the final couple beats there. So now when you put the wah on, that makes all of the difference, and it's going to sound way more like Kirk Hammett's solo in the song. Let me just play that whole melodic section slowly for you. Congratulations, you got through a very difficult guitar solo there. Now the most important things to keep in mind are those little blips and blurbs. You want to count how many times those fast licks are repeated each time. Remember the magic number, 5 and then 6. Alright? And then we just got to keep going through that. And you want to feel out all the beats as they're moving. So maybe bop your head along to it, because it can get really chaotic if you're not doing that. After that beautiful guitar solo, we hit into this riff that's pretty nasty, if I must say so myself. And we're actually in F now. We're sort of doing this F, F, B flat B, B flat B, B flat B, F, B flat B, B flat B, B flat B, F sharp F, B flat B. And then we stop on that F. So let's just take a moment to kind of dissect that. We have an F, which is our 1. I'm going to call it our 1. In between, you're putting a mute. So it's sort of an indiscernible note in between there. You can use the open E, which I would think is the way that it's going, but you're barely even going to hear that. All you're really hearing are the power chords that are accented on each beat, right? And these are on the downbeats. 1, perfect 4th, flatted 5th, so tritone, we're getting an evil, and we're just going between those two. So that's kind of bluesy. Until we get down to this F sharp or G flat, which is the flatted 2nd, Phrygian. Lars plays a little bit of a drum fill that's a little bit out of time, actually, if you listen to the timing here. I don't know what the hell he was doing. Obviously not to a metronome, because we're speeding up and slowing down all over the place. But then we go like this, which is the same exact thing as we were playing in the riff before, remember? That pickup into the main riff, but here we have to start on the F. That's the only difference. So we're a half step above where we ordinarily would be, and it makes it just slightly more annoying to play because we have to move from here to there without skipping a beat. Right after that transition, we hit into verse 3, which is exactly the same, and then we hit into chorus 3, which is exactly the same except for the ending. Let's see if you can spot it here. So the second time it ends exactly how all the other ones end. The first time it cuts off 2 beats. So we have really a measure of 2/4 in between. Remember where we had the measure of 5? This time we're adding a measure of 2 at the end of that. So check this out. 1 and a 2 and a 3 and 4 and 1, 2. So you can see that as being an extra measure of 2 or a measure of 6. That might be fun. You're ending it with 5 and then you end it with 6. Wow, unbelievable. It's like rocket science. Counting to 5 and counting to 6. Jeez, us musicians, we have it really hard, don't we? All these time changes serve to do is to create a battery tag, a Maytag home appliance Home Depot Lowe's mega sale that we will definitely be attending, to elongate the chorus slightly, just to make it a little more interesting this time around, and to further reinforce the idea that this song is indeed called Battery. All the time that we're looking at this, all the time changes have battery within it. That extra beat on the 5/4 measure is battery. The extra 2/4 is battery. Right? Let's go through that real quick. Battery. Battery. You see what I mean? And that's not even the last stop right there. We do have a little bit of a hard stop, but then we come right back into this riff. Same notes. Same alternating mute and non-mute. Now this time, the very last time, Lars just creates a double time beat on top of that to make it sound a little more upbeat heavy, right? It's almost like that polka beat's happening there. And then once we hit the ending, we hold out that last B. So, by the way, the tempo shifts as well. It goes a little bit faster. No metronome here. B. Now the B is the 5 chord of the E minor, so I'm going to say we're in the original key again. That's an easy way to pivot between that F with the tritone and an E minor chord to be the ending, really. So we're holding on that B, and then we're ending like this, which is a natural 2 going to a flat 2 going into an E, which is the 1. Now that is a very odd thing to do, because usually you go 3-2-1, or 3, flat 2, 1. But here, we're just going 2, flat 2 to 1. We don't even care about the 3rd scale degree at all. Screw the intro to this song. Screw every flat 3rd or major 3rd that you can think of, because we're in Tuville right here. Number 9. Revolution number 9. Thanks so much for coming on this journey, everybody. I know these songs are very long. They're in-depth. They require a lot of thought, a lot of patience, and I'm glad that you were patient along with me, okay? If you want to further support the channel so I can keep doing these videos, go to www.subscribestar.com/RomanOva Music, and you can make a monthly donation of any amount you want. $1, $5, $10, $30, whatever you want to do, okay? And you get some perks with that as well. You can also leave a tip on my tip jar, PayPal. The link is down below in the description. And that's going to be it, everybody. Thanks for coming along with Battery. Next up is going to be Master of Puppets, so stick around for that one. Peace.